So are you then almost fighting two different wars here? One to get your rail service that you want, that you covet, and another to, I guess, build up some momentum among the electorate to get some changes, be it municipally, provincially, or federally, to get that sort of rail service put in place?
Well, it's dicey because I like to, I mean, it is a very positive time. I mean, for the last 20 years of my life, I've been saying we want trains. And all of a sudden, we're getting a whole whack of trains, but on one line. So it's a very positive thing. But ideally, you wouldn't want to cannibalize the line, meaning you got these VIA trains here. Why don't you put the GO in Cambridge, have 10 VIA trains go in, have 10 GO trains go in from Cambridge, and everybody benefits. So what they're doing is, it's not an ideal situation. But having said that, you will all have more options to get in. Now, the last thing about that is it going to be a timely option? Because right now, like I said, an hour 40 to get into Toronto. Well, you put the GO trains, you put a few extra stops in, people aren't going to like 2 hours. You know, and so that's not what the modern world does with commuter rail. And unfortunately, we might have that, which is better than not having a train.
Right. Can we look at any, even European nations as a model for what we could or should be achieving here?
I think anywhere, anywhere in Europe. I mean, when I give my presentations about the light rail, for instance, and I talked about in France there, and I give 10 examples in France, and I gave it to the city of Guelph. I said 10 examples of where the population reached 100,000, where they put in their rail line, light rail corridor to influence development. Why in the city of Guelph, where 100,000 people, are you not even mentioning in your transportation study rail corridors, where you're only saying, let's put on some more buses, which is the 50-year non-solution that, I mean, it just cracks me up when people say, well, let's add a bus. Oh, that's really worked well since 1958, so we got to move beyond that.
How viable is high speed? And by high speed, I'm broadening out now, thinking the Windsor straight through to Quebec corridor.
Right. Well, as you know, that is my passion the last couple of years on high-speed rail. It is simply insane what we have here in Ontario with the population we have in Ontario and Quebec not to have high speed. But again, for people, it's way outside the box. But if you go over to Europe, and I can name a zillion countries, and get on one of those trains, then you go, hey, ooh, yeah, I guess you can do it, you know? So the cultural shift, though, with high speed is a lot bigger. Governments politically aren't getting elected because they say, we want to put a high speed in. They've got elected because they're going to put in a 407 or because they're going to put in Highway 7 between Kitchener and Guelph. So we've got a long ways to go. Only the worsening situation in the environment and the worsening situation in your pocketbook because of the gas prices is getting people to say, maybe there should be an option. Maybe we don't have to go slow when we go from A to B.
And yet, with the environment, I think we can say it's fair to say that has been a going concern, a growing concern, something that we've been hearing a little bit about during this election campaign. And yet, as much as we talk about the environment, I haven't been hearing a whole lot about rail or commuter service. Have you been hearing something that I may not have been, or would you like to hear it in this campaign?
Again, and I hate going back to the major points, but since we've not seen it viable in so many decades, people do not see it as an option. The number one thing I hear from people is, well, I haven't been on VIA in 20 years. They don't even get into it. It's expensive. It doesn't run. They just don't even think on it. So we have to go a long way to educate our people that this could be a viable option. And that's what one of the roles of a group like Transport 2000 or High Speed Rail Canada is, to go out there and try to dispel the myths. Because here's another quick one. The Regional Waterloo, for their master transportation plan, last time they did it, was they hired a road consultant to do their plan. So their plan was, whatever, 290 pages of roads. Well, you know, the province of Ontario, when they went through about 7 years ago now, doing these public consultations on what the future strategies is for transportation in Ontario, the person that led all these meetings was the head of one of the biggest road consulting companies in Ontario. So we got a long way to go to get that kind of incestuous, nebulous thing that's been going on out of the system to say, well, let's get somebody new. So for instance, Ben mentioned a new high-speed rail study. Well, looking at old ones again, actually. My big thing right now is I'm bugging the province. Who are you asking to do this study? Please, God, or whoever you believe in, please don't hire a road consulting company to say, should we get high-speed rail? Because I'll guarantee you they might come up with a no. Or yes, and we need 100 bridges because that's how we make our money.
Is there an appetite, Paul, for this movement? I mean, I get the sense that we are becoming far more environmentally aware. I'm still not sure, though, and I've admitted myself, I like to think as environmentally conscious as I can, and yet when I have to travel to Toronto for any reason, I barely give any other mode of transportation another thought, and I hop in my car. Is there an appetite here?
Oh, no, things are turning to the positive. I can tell you, in the first 15 years I was in Transport 2000, our whole mode of operation is, don't cut us, don't cut the rail line, don't lose a train. So things have definitely changed to, how can we do it right now? And what are the politics that are keeping us from moving forward? And let's get rid of, I mean, as you know, up until last week, the Region of Waterloo Chair, Ken Sealing, was against GO Trains because he thought it was going to turn Waterloo Region into a bedroom community. That is such an outdated thought. I mean, but yet you're going to give them a new road into Toronto. I mean, it's such an outdated thing. So we have to change the mentality. And yes, things are getting positive, and we're starting to see that. I mean, geez, who would have thought 10 trains up Kitchener-Guelph Way maybe in 3 years? Right. I mean, I'll be the first one at the station. I mean, I won't believe it myself.
You'll be the conductor, I'm sure.
Well, don't let me on.
And we do have that prospect. That's that possibility of those 10 trains, Kitchener to Guelph with the GO Transit system. I'm sure you have a wish list, Paul. I'm sure you have a dream vision. But realistically, and taking these 10 trains within 3 years, that possibility into account, where can you see us realistically going in 10, 15 years down the road, or down the line, as it were?
Yeah, we see that's in our culture. Right?
That's right.
I think the biggest thing to me has to be the inner and interconductivity. And what I mean is, Ben had talked about it, and you've talked about it, everything has to connect. So right now in Hespeler, for me to get to anything by transit, whether it's the bus or the Greyhound or the Via, I mean, it's just impossible. I have to leave the day before. Right. I mean, it's ridiculous. So it has to be seamless, and that's going to be the challenge, because whether it's the light rail line, whether it's a high-speed rail line, whether it's more GO Trains, more Via, has to be seamless, whether it's ticketing, whether it's you get out your door, across the street, or within a block or so, you have that transit system that's going to take you right there all the way along the line. And of course, it has to be affordable. So people aren't going to get on. You can have it convenient. You could have it frequent, but if you can't afford it, people aren't going to get on it. So that's one thing Via has to get through, and even GO has to get through it. GO in the 905, it works. You can charge people through the throat because they're so desperate. When you come out to 519, people aren't quite as desperate. You have to make it incentives to get them on there, and one of those incentives has to be affordability.
All right. I appreciate the passion, and I certainly appreciate the vision and your time tonight. Paul Langan, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Mike.
That's going to put an end to the transportation part of our